Kicking off the list at number 10, Spider-Man, Jester, and Jack-O-Lantern. The MCU's Captain America's Civil War is much more tame than the comic book. I mean, for starters, in the comic, Peter sides with Tony until he realizes that Tony is spying on him, so he switches over to Cap's side. That didn't happen in the movie at all. So in the comic, this causes Stark to send out Jester and Jack-O-Lantern to go and fight Spider-Man. So Peter ended up getting his butt kicked to these guys, and it's all thanks to Stark. There's no chance also that Peter should have lost to them. I mean, imagine if he didn't lose, the entire story would be so different. At first, the two thought taking orders from S.H.I.E.L.D. was a bum deal, as they put it, a bum deal. That is until they got the orders to fight Spider-Man, which they made very clear that they enjoyed doing. And before we continue on with this list, if you guys could go ahead and give us a thumbs up on this video, it helps the channel out a lot. We really appreciate it. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Now back to our list. Number 9, Batman vs. Guy Gardner. Okay, this one comes from Justice League issue 5, and it's commonly known as the punch. We have a punch and we have a slap. Now it's time to talk about the punch. So in this comic, Batman comes to take over the Justice League International, and Guy Gardner doesn't share the same enthusiasm as the rest of the team. So for more than one issue, he makes it very clear that he doesn't like this new leader. He's not a fan of the Bats. So naturally, a large conflict was growing, although Batman was clearly the better fit for the role. So he challenged Batman to a fight without the use of his power ring. Big mistake. And then Batman proceeded to knock him out with one punch. One punch, one punch. Yes, here we go. Blue Beetle even got pumped about it and started yelling, one punch, one punch. Hence why it's a big thing now. This is an amazing moment and an even greater lesson rather, but a Green Lantern getting knocked out by a human punch should never happen, ever. Never. Don't start fights you can't win without the ring that makes you a superhero, or else you're just a guy in a suit. Pun intended.
Coming in at number 8, we've got Ultimate Dr. Octopus versus Ultimate Green Goblin. In the Ultimate Marvel universe, both Otto Octavius and Norman Osborn became their supervillain alter egos in the same accident, with Otto's mechanical arms being grafted onto his body in the same experiment that transformed Norman Osborn into a muscular version of the Green Goblin. After fighting together against Spider-Man for years, Doc Ock finally saw an opportunity to leave his life of crime behind when he was free from prison. However, the Green Goblin refused to give up on his quest for revenge, and after being enraged by Otto's comments on Spider-Man potentially being their greatest creation as scientists, he flat out murdered Octavius in the street to keep the rest of his superpowered followers in line. That's gonna be a yikes from me, Norman.
Number 7, Captain America and Sharon Carter. We go back now again to the Civil War comic book event where Captain America was killed by Sharon Carter. Yeah, after Crossbones sniped him, Agent 13, who was also at the time Cap's girlfriend, delivered the final bullet from a much closer point. Well, it turns out it wasn't Sharon who was doing the work, really. I mean, the classic brainwashing made this defeat happen. Dr. Faustus, yeah, this causes a whole chain of events. I mean, for starters, Bucky decides at that point that he should go and try and kill Iron Man, blaming him for the death of Steve Rogers. And then Falcon also goes after his own lead. Now, Tony ended up showing Bucky the letter that Cap wrote about how he should be the next Captain America, and Bucky agrees to take the spot only if he can operate solo. No shield, no nothing, I'm not working for you, I'm not punching in, I'm just doing my thing. And to think that all this came to a climax after Steve's girlfriend, of all people, was the one to deliver the fatal blow, it's just heartbreaking, and it's something that never should have happened. Number 6, Squirrel Girl and Dr. Doom. So Squirrel Girl has beaten some big bads in the Marvel Universe before. She's taken down MODOK, Mandarin, and at one point Thanos. It's becoming a running joke by now, but one defeat that always shocks me is when a bunch of squirrels took down Victor Von Doom. Just a bunch of squirrels. Yeah, it happened back in the 90s in Marvel Superheroes issue 8. So she bumps into Iron Man and then starts to show what she can do, alright? She's trying to give him a run for his money in order to show how rough and tough she really can be. So she shows him her mutant powers, like jumping, hopping, climbing, all like a squirrel. It's amazing. He's fascinated. She's even pumped to show him that she can also sound like a squirrel too, which, I mean, if you can do it, I would love to see that. Fair. But the most impressive of all these abilities has to be when an abundance of squirrels is commanded to jump onto Stark, and then enter Dr. Doom. Doom comes in and he interrupts Stark's electronics. So, in order to save Tony at this point, she needs to send a horde of squirrels onto the Doom ship. Just a horde of squirrels. As if they don't have, wives and kids to go back home. They have nuts to store and eat. They have things to do, right? And voila, Stark is free thanks to the insane squirrel posse. Then the rodents get their fur on Dr. Doom and he's forced to retreat and jump into nearby water. It's the best panel ever. He's like, squirrels? No way, man, I'm out of here. Good riddance, peace. And then he literally runs away and jumps. Like he's out of there. He wants nothing to do with that. One of those times you're happy the hero won, but like, squirrels. We have a lot of squirrels up here in Canada. I don't think they can take on Dr. Doom. They're pretty fat. Number 5, Spider-Man and the Red Goblin. The Red Goblin. It's a mix between the Green Goblin and Carnage. I mean, you have a combination of 2 of the most powerful bad guys ever against Peter. He shouldn't have won this, I don't think. Let me explain. Appearing in the Amazing Spider-Man 798, this all came to life after Norman Osborn stole the Carnage symbiote, and after that, all hell just broke loose. He created this monster. So Norman used the Carnage symbiote to eject all the nanites, but then that ended up creating this monster mashup becoming the Red Goblin. It was like a science experiment that made things worse for everyone, but better for him almost. So the rare weaknesses that the symbiote did have went away once the 2 had merged, making him like unstoppable. Peter Parker for sure should have lost this battle. I mean, he's so overpowered here. I mean, even the bombs that he throws at Spider-Man are upgraded versions of his own bombs. This time around, the bombs are red Carnage bombs that Pete can't even sense. It's all fused together and it's really intimidating. It's very scary. So Pete seems to agree by his choice of words. Peter admits a few pages later after he retreats that he couldn't last 3 minutes in the ring with him. Yeah, I agree. The readers are like, absolutely. You're absolutely right. The final issue had Peter get the upper hand on Osborn by mind games? Yeah, he explains how Carnage will get all the glory here in this defeat of Spider-Man and not Norman Osborn. I mean, ego is a great place to attack. If it works, it works. So when he becomes Norman Osborn again, the fight is manageable now, and Spider-Man can come out on top. Now, as great as this is, I really don't think it would be this easy to turn the tides. Not after some Carnage bombs. Get out of here, no way. Number 4, Batman and the Hulk. Yep, you heard me. So back in the late 70s, Marvel and DC came together for a handful of crossovers. One of these crossovers featured a battle with the Incredible Hulk and Batman. There have been many conversations about who would win in a fight between Iron Man and Batman. If you're a fan of this page, odds are you've had this talk with your friends, because they're both humans who rely on their brains and brawn to get by, kind of even. Personally, I'd pick Batman to win that fight any day, but the Hulk, no chance. Batman vs. the Hulk, issue 27 of DC Comics Special Series. So we have Batman and the Joker trying to control the Green Giant. And when the Hulk gets his hands on Batman, well, that should have been the end for sure. Even Batman said he felt like his spine was going to snap like a pencil. And believe me, if anybody knows what that feels like, it's definitely Batman. So he gets out of his grasp by a nice double ear smack, and then he finishes him off by using some sleeping gas from his belt, followed by a nice flying kick. Now, it's great to see Batman use his skills to take down the Beast. That's what he's good at. Unfortunately, I don't think any fight between them would ever last long enough to give him the chance to do so, especially if he has him in his hands. He would be dead. Number 3, Iron Man and Magneto. Now, when I say that, your first thought probably is, well, of course Magneto would win a fight fighting a guy in a metal suit, but this wasn't the case during an X-Men vs. Avengers storyline. If you think this is a no contest, you've never met Tony Stark. So Stark gets buried by Magneto under 200 tons of rubble, because even though Tony's suit at this point was made of carbon nanotubes, the island that he was fighting on was made of metal. So step 2 was for Tony to release a swarm of high-tech magnets to try and throw him off his game a little bit. This of course didn't work. You're giving magnets to Magneto, you know? So Magneto tried reaching out to the cosmos to channel power from other planets, but in doing so, he sensed a disruption in the form of the Phoenix Force. So while he was distracted there, Tony took this as an opening and knocked him out. Now, as fun as this was, and it led to other fun things, it was also highly unlikely that Iron Man will beat Magneto again. If this happened on the big screen, fans would rip it apart, no doubt about it.
Number 2, Death. Not like the character Death, but the actual concept itself. In the 2000 Harley Quinn solo series, we see Harley die and go to hell. But you already knew that from my point about Hell's best bounty hunter, Ulysses Highwater. To continue on from that point, Harley doesn't only defeat Highwater in the end by piecing together what he really wants and why and getting it for him, but in doing so, she also manages to escape hell and death itself. You see, Harley wants to help Highwater reconnect with his son as he's hunting down the man who stole him away. His lover, Nathan Drum. His son's lover, not his lover, who he blames for actually corrupting his son. Harley finds out, unsurprisingly, that Highwater's son and Drum are of course not in hell, but somewhere likely much better. The other place perhaps being heaven. She offers Highwater their whereabouts, but makes him promise not to punish either of them for finding love with one another. However, just as Highwater seems to agree and assures Harley that he actually loves his son very much, and so he wouldn't do that anyways, Etrigan shows up and kicks Harley out of hell. You see, she's just too much of a nuisance to remain there. After all, people aren't supposed to find things like love and forgiveness during their stay in hell. So yeah, he rhymes her the heck out of there and then squeezes Loot Harley. He's like, you're too annoying. The Ballad of Harley Quinn.
And finally, number 1, Old Man Logan and the Hulk. I like the Hulk. He shouldn't really lose anything ever. That's the point I'm getting at. Seeing the Hulk fight Wolverine is something I hope we can see on the big screen in my lifetime. I mean, with all these franchises crossing over soon with WandaVision and stuff, maybe it's sooner than we think, but I doubt it. They have no reason to fight yet. But one of the highlight battles between these two beasts take place in Old Man Logan. Now, at the end of the story, Logan went back to finish off Hulk Gang, right? Of course. So soon after the Hulk comes out, they start fighting, even throwing cows at one another. Real wild stuff. Funny, gory, scary, loud, you name it. And then he turns into the big green guy, and boy, does it get ugly. So Billy Bob comes in the cave later on and sees just a mess. He sees bodies all over the floor, and then he sees Hulk struggling with some digestion problems. Odd. So then Wolverine literally rips his way out of his stomach, and that's what kills the Hulk. The Hulk should have won this fight for sure. If he didn't make the mistake of eating him, he probably could have done it. Or the Hulk should have healed after the whole Wolverine C-section thing, so the fight should have maybe continued. I mean, for the story to end this way, it was a little disappointing.
Coming in at number 10, we've got Deathstroke versus Gorilla Grodd, two villains with an unexpected rivalry with incredibly tragic origins. While working for the villainous organization Hive, Deathstroke and his ex-wife Adeline Kane are captured when the group is surprise attacked by Vandal Savage and Gorilla Grodd, the latter of which winds up cutting Adeline's throat for a ritual to unlock the power of the Fountain of Youth. Outraged and heartbroken, Deathstroke would go on a violent spree to exact revenge on Grodd, attacking the heart of gorilla civilization and killing multiple intelligent apes in his search for his true enemy, a situation where nobody wins and the villains just continue hurting themselves and others more and more.
Coming in at number 9, Green Goblin vs. Hobgoblin. Green Goblin vs. Hobgoblin seems to only have happened in the 90s Spider-Man animated series that you know I love to talk about, but it could have happened elsewhere, just according to my research. After Hobgoblin was introduced before Green Goblin, Osborn went kinda nuts because, you know, Goblin. But since Osborn was the one who equipped the Hobgoblin, he was able to know where he'd be and who he was under the mask, resulting in Goblin attacking Hobby at Wilson Fisk's tower base, kinda thing, who had also been discovered by Spider-Man, who was shocked to see multiple goblins. This fight was certainly more tame since it was a 90s cartoon, but it's still pretty damn cool to see the goblins going at it, in like a fighting to see which goblin reigns supreme kind of way, not going in any other way, you freaking sickos, okay? I know where your mind is. While you're in the gutter, could you please clear it out? Okay, it's full of leaves.
Number 8, Bruiser vs. Wolverine. Runaways, issue 12. So we see Logan and Molly Hayes, aka Bruiser, have a rather quick exchange. Now at this time, Wolverine was a member of the New Avengers, and he's trying to get to the bottom of what happened to Dagger. So he, Cap, and Iron Man went to find help from the Runaways, seeing as the signs were leading to Cloak being responsible. So Molly is one of the strongest heroes ever, for sure. But how she handled Wolverine was almost a little bit too easy. So they walk into the cathedral, Cap calmly asks her to stop screaming, and that Wolverine and him are not going to hurt her. Laying the foundation, good. Said very calm, from a very calm man. This is good. The screaming continues, and Wolverine even asks if she's heard of heightened senses, and then gives her 3 seconds to stop drilling a hole into his brain. So he counts 3, 2, and then the next page we have outside face down Logan in the snow. Then when he comes back in, he's quite embarrassed about what just happened, even saying how he won't tell anybody tonight what happened if they don't, as he brushes off some snow.
And at 7, New Goblin vs. Sandman and Venom. Spider-Man 3, while not the most favorite Sam Raimi movie, is still, in my opinion, a good movie. I like the scenes that everyone finds to be cringy, because I'm just a cringy guy. That thing, that's me. But I also love the climactic battle. Seeing Spider-Man get pummeled by 2 villains is certainly a harrowing sight, especially when he's already basically lost everything. But then an unlikely hero comes in, a man who has been the villain the whole movie. Harry Osborn, also known as the New Goblin, who had taken the same serum as his father but ends up using it in a better way. He ends up being critical in the fight against Sandman and Venom, using his bombs to take down Sandman and helping Peter save MJ and get to Venom before it was too late. This is certainly not a cop cop-out for this list though, because he was the villain the whole movie, okay? At least when he didn't lose his memories. Let's be honest here, okay? You know that even if it had its moments, it was still a good movie. I will die on this hill every single time.
If they can edit this in, I'm also in support of Spider-Man 3. I'll put that on the record. Coming in at number 6, we have to go with the Riddler versus the Joker, a confrontation so huge that it spawned an entire comic book event and turned all the villains of Gotham City against one another. When the Riddler reached out to the Joker to ask for his help in teaming up to finally kill the Batman together, the Joker responded by unexpectedly shooting the Riddler flat out in the stomach. This one act of violence kickstarted a series of escalations that wouldn't stop until hundreds more were dead and all of Gotham City had been carved out by the two warring factions. And while the two villains would eventually reconcile after Batman foiled both of their master plans, it just goes to show how dangerous two angry supervillains pointed at one another can be.
Halfway through in at number 5, Venom vs. Carnage. Venom vs. Carnage comes up whenever and whatever reality Carnage is introduced in. And while yes, Venom is a villain, he has a purpose. The symbiote wants to get back to Spider-Man and Brock wants to kill him. Sometimes the two share this goal. However, Carnage just wants, well, Carnage. So when he starts going a little too berserk, Venom does end up teaming up with Peter to stop him. Whether it's just because he needs Spider-Man alive, or Carnage goes too far and kidnaps someone Brock cares about, like in the 90s animated cartoon. But either way, it's certainly an interesting scenario, especially with Venom Let There Be Carnage having come out recently, which features this fight just as literally the main point of the movie. However, usually Venom doesn't seem to fear his asexually spawned son, which is, it's still weird. Carnage is Venom's son. That's an awkward family reunion. Like, why are there so many awkward familial relationships in comic books? I don't get it. Like, oh, what are you doing, step symbiote?
Coming in at number 4, we've got two of the most powerful villains in the Marvel Universe with Thanos versus Galactus. Now, with power levels as high as these two, their battling is a topic that is often debated by fans, as different encounters have led to very different outcomes. In situations where he's faced Galactus without an item, such as the Infinity Gauntlet on hand, Thanos has been essentially outmatched, only capable of landing a single blow on Galactus before the godlike strength of the power cosmic was able to defeat him. However, Thanos has a particular fondness for the Infinity Gems, they kind of made a few movies about those, and these powerful stones put him on a much more even playing field, able to beat the power cosmic down into submission and even crushing Galactus between two different planets. Come on guys, can't we all just learn to get along?
Number 3, Wonder Woman. Sometimes you have to defeat the ones you love for their own good and protection. That's what happened in this fight featuring Harley Quinn and Wonder Woman. Well, it was less a fight and more of a rescue slash kidnapped attempt, but still, Harley came out on top here and managed to defeat Wonder Woman. In order, of course, to rescue her. So it was a nice defeat. Harley Quinn is actually a huge superhero fan herself, if you didn't know, especially of Wonder Woman and of Power Girl. In an attempt to protect Diana from those who were hunting her down, Harley disguised herself as a flower delivery person. And when Diana turned her back to go grab a pen to sign for the flowers, she knocked her out with a gas bomb. So yeah, it wasn't like a crazy epic fight, but still, it's pretty impressive that Harley was able to kind of pull one over on Wonder Woman there. Still beat her, gotta say.
Coming in at number 2, we've got our boy Thanos again, but this time he's facing off with Dr. Doom. And unfortunately, while the Infinity Gems might have given the Mad Titan the strength to stand up to Galactus and the Power Cosmic, in this one specific battle with Doom, Thanos didn't stand a chance. During the Battleworld saga, in which Victor Von Doom had become God Emperor Doom, Thanos approached his enemy on the battlefield and tried to give Doom one last chance to bow before a true god. And sadly for Thanos, he was vastly overestimating himself, as God Emperor Doom was capable of pulling a Mortal Kombat style fatality and pulling Thanos' spine and skull out of his still living body. And while eventually Doom would be overthrown and the Marvel Universe put back mostly to normal, Thanos will definitely think twice before trying to smack talk Dr. Doom ever again.
Finally, in at number 1, Joker vs. Red Skull. In 1996, Batman and Captain America came together for a crossover the likes of which nobody had ever seen. I mean, that's probably slightly exaggerated, but this was still a highly anticipated team up because, let's be real, it's Cap and Batman. However, when two heroes team up, you know that their villains are bound to as well. So the Joker and Red Skull had formed an alliance. That is, until the Joker found out who Red Skull really served, that being the German soldiers present in World War II, because I can't mention them for monetization reasons. Thanks YouTube, let's censor history. What are you, the public school system? Anyway, after finding out Red Skull's affiliations and who was really involved in the plan, Joker turned on Red Skull, showing that he at least had a bit of a moral code, saying, quote, "I may be a criminal lunatic, but I'm an American criminal lunatic." I don't know why Joker was shocked, given that Red Skull was literally walking around with that symbol on his chest, but Joker just seemed to think that it was a crazy disguise, which is the dumbest thing ever. Like, I think that's the dumbest thing that Joker's ever done. Like, even if it was a disguise, would you really want to be seen with that just walking around? Even if you are a criminal lunatic? Because of course not. You said it yourself, you're an American criminal lunatic.
Number 10, Deadpool? Okay, so not really Deadpool, more like DC's parody version of Marvel's parody character. You know who I'm talking about, it's Red Tool. Red Tool is a mercenary who only fights with power tools, and while he doesn't appear to have regenerative powers, can definitely still take a beating. In fact, he even got beat himself up by Harley Quinn after having his phone number tattooed on her butt and arranging to surprise her for a wedding. People have always thought Harley and Deadpool would make a great match, which is where Red Tool and his sudden romantic inclination come in. Of course, for Harley, it would take more convincing than a surprise wedding. She beat Red Tool to the point that he was knocked unconscious, proving that in DC's opinion, Harley could make quick work of Marvel's Deadpool besides. At least their parody of him. However, Harley did ultimately decide to team up with Red Tool after he came to and they were surrounded by the GCPD. Fortunately, his wedding present to Harley was the perfect ticket out of this predicament. I kind of love Red Tool and Harley Quinn together too. They're pretty cute. Also just like Red Tool in general with his little tool speech bubbles. Number 9, Manos. Manos is the wielder of the Infinity Rings. So yeah, you guessed it. He's a parody of Marvel's Thanos. But just because he's a parody doesn't mean he's not powerful. He still wields those super powerful rings and is super evil, leading to Power Girl to want to take him on when both she and Harley seek him out on their adventure together. While Manos is busy monologuing about just how epically he is going to destroy them both, Harley Quinn manages to steal the rings off his fingers without him noticing, and then accidentally kills him with the rings, to boot. She didn't know they were loaded, you know, so it's not really her fault there. Should this be possible? Probably not. Is it hilarious? You betcha. How did she even steal those rings without him noticing? That's what I want to know. Number 8, Lobo. In Injustice Gods Among Us, Harley Quinn is working some stuff out after Joker is gone and ends up stealing Lobo's flying motorcycle. This ends about as well as you could imagine, with Harley being chased all over by the crazy, overly violent parody of a tough 90s guy. Lobo having the power to regenerate and Harley Quinn being a normal human would mean you'd think that she'd never be able to beat him. But you'd be wrong. Armed with Lex Luthor's super strength and durability pills and her knowledge of psychology, Harley ends up convincing Black Canary and Green Arrow to team up with her and then makes quick work of her pursuer. And then of course, using her psychology, she's like, yeah, this isn't really about me, is it, Lobo? And Lobo's like, it's not, you're right. And before we move on to our next point, just a quick reminder to give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying it and if you love Harley Quinn as much as I do. Number 7, Deathstroke. Of course, this one, like Lobo, was a bit of a team effort. In fact, even more of a team effort than Lobo's defeat, if I'm being honest. But still, Harley fought alongside the rest of the Suicide Squad to take down Deathstroke. And it worked, so I'm counting it. They ultimately were successful and Harley did help. So yeah. Deathstroke actually was also working with the squad but ended up betraying them. Together with Black Manta and a final shot from Deadshot, Harley took down Slade Wilson, which even with help is still pretty impressive considering how usually unstoppable and undefeatable Deathstroke is considered to be. Yeah, I feel like even if you get help in defeating Deathstroke, you're still doing pretty good. If you can do it. I couldn't do it with help. I don't know, maybe unless like Superman was helping me? Number 6, Ulysses Highwater. Ulysses was Hell's very own bounty hunter who pursued Harley after she managed to break out of her own personal circle of torment in the steamy underworld. I don't know why I called it a steamy underworld, because it's hell and it's not nice. I feel like steamy makes it sound a lot nicer than it actually is. She was back with her crew, the Quintets, and while Ulysses was a powerful demon who wielded guns and magic smoke and magic bullets, Harley found a way to outsmart him. I just love that this is more often than not Harley's tactic. In a typical psychologist play, she simply found a bounty that Highwater craved more and used it to manipulate him. He caught her, but she found a way to manipulate her tormentor, Petite, and then get back to Ulysses to offer him the bounty of his dreams so that she might escape his ire. Pretty brilliant, really. It didn't end up working out for Highwater, but in the end, it definitely worked out for Quinn. Number 5, Batman. At least this one feels like a sort of fair fight because both Batman and Harley Quinn are humans without any superpowers. But when it comes to skill sets and resources, Batman is definitely working with a lot more than Harley Quinn is. Still, somehow, there have been multiple occasions where Harley has bested Batman in both the animated universe and even in the comics, and much to the chagrin usually of the Joker, proving that while Joker may have been around for longer, Harley might somehow be an even greater criminal genius in some weird twist of fate. Of course, Batman also might try to convince you that he's only lost any fight to Harley because he wanted to, and that it was all part of his master plan. But then, what else is new? Isn't that usually Batman's go-to excuse in the face of defeat? I don't know how many comics I've read where Batman's like, oh, I meant to lose. It's all part of my master plan. Okay, Bruce. Of course, if you still feel like this is too, racy or is too dangerous, let us know and we can always try to do something different. Number 4, Adolf. I mean, this one is just super surprising because Harley would need a time machine or something to even get back in time to the leader of the German forces during World War II, yeah? Or you might just need Superman's balls. No, not those balls. These balls! Harley managed to swipe these Kryptonian power orbs while she was in Superman's Fortress of Solitude. The green ones allow you to time travel, which sends Harley back in time to, well, an alternate timeline that basically looks a lot like DC's Bombshells, in this case. In fact, it pretty much is DC's Bombshells. Harley goes back there and surprisingly not only runs into and defeats Adolf, but manages to defeat a bunch of armed soldiers besides. It's all pretty impressive, actually. She also gets to kiss herself. Her bombshell self. Her bombshell self is gross.
Getting close to the end, into number 3, Doomsday versus Darkseid. After a battle in Metropolis, Superman attached Doomsday's body to an asteroid, which is freaking brutal, and then he flung that asteroid into space. However, the issue ended with a panel of the reawakened and laughing Doomsday, still chained to the asteroid but otherwise alive. After passing through a wormhole, Doomsday's asteroid was found by a deep space scavenger ship. Upon examination of the particularly looking drifting rock, the ship crew retrieved the object, hoping to find something of value. The scavenger vessel happened to be en route to Apocalypse, and you know what's gonna happen now. Darkseid has since been empowered by the fabled Omega Force after his first encounter with Doomsday, and oh yeah, they've already fought together at one point. But Doomsday was fully rested this time because, he was chained to a freaking asteroid, and after slaughtering the crew of the salvage ship, found himself landing on a harsh world. Unknown to Superman, Doomsday had faced off and beaten Darkseid in single combat, even after withstanding the full effect of Darkseid's Omega beams, and then he just laid waste to Apocalypse. And while the fight may have happened off screen, or I guess off page, it's pretty damn terrifying knowing that Doomsday just beat Darkseid just because he could.
Number 2, Thor and the Incredible Hulk. Thor Ragnarok is easily one of the best installments in the Infinity Saga. Taika Waititi is returning to the studio to do Thor Love and Thunder, and I can't wait. He's super funny. If you haven't seen What We Do in the Shadows, go watch it out. It's his best work, I'd say. And Jojo Rabbit. He makes good movies. So one of my favorite scenes from the movie is also one that makes fans pretty annoyed. Now this part in the movie had to happen so the plot can move a certain way, and we got to see a cool battle take place in the meantime, but it's also kind of unrealistic. So the Grandmaster's great champion, of course, ends up being Thor's friend from work, Hulk. Now he's been there for a while after Sokovia, so he's not the same green guy as they last saw. Thor spent most of the fight getting it handed to him. He was trying to talk to Bruce, trying to calm him down, give him little arm tickles. It wasn't working out. Until he tapped into his true powers and unleashed a good number of lightning bolts to the face. that ought to do it. So Thor is about to finish off Sakar's champion once and for all until the Grandmaster himself intervened. If only he had replaced that remote for like 2 seconds, this movie would have gone a much different route. Maybe less fun, but probably more honest.
Number 1, the Trinity. Harley Quinn has not only managed to defeat all of those superheroes individually, but even managed to defeat them all together, what we refer to as the DC Holy Trinity of superheroes. In Heroes in Crisis, she manages to make quick work of them, using them against one another. She gets close enough to Diana, hugging her and confessing that she was not the one to blame for the tragedy at Sanctuary, so that she can get her hands on her lasso of truth. Haha. She then uses that to tie up Batman, threatening to break his neck with the lasso while using it to question him. She asks him if he has anything on him that, could be used against Superman. And paranoid old Batman, he definitely does. He has a bit of kryptonite in his belt, he tells her. She takes that and uses it to defeat Superman, taking off and escaping before anyone is able to do anything. Honestly, I'm actually really surprised that Wonder Woman didn't really do more here, because I feel like Diana definitely had the opportunity. But I guess, once you're holding Batman hostage, it's like, not much you can do, because they're like, we don't want Batman to die. So, fair.